Welcome to the American Business Podcast. I'm Kevin Devecioglu, your host. The American Business Podcast is the voice of American business. I am welcoming you, episode 76, and we are in season 3. Today's number is 410. $410 billion is the projected size of US software industry in 2030. Speaking of US software industry, we have a special guest today. We'll talk about business software industry in the US. We'll talk about AI and other popular technological subjects together. Let's invite our guest and let's get the conversation started. Hello, Andy. Welcome to the podcast.
How are you, Kevin?
Great. I'm actually happy to have you. It's great seeing you. How is your week going so far?
It's been good. It's been good. Up here in the Northeast, I play a lot of tennis, and it's the last days of being outside until it's too cold. And so I've been playing a lot of tennis. So I'm an old man, so I'm pretty sore right now. But we'll get through it. I have the weekend to relax and to, pop Advil.
Yes, that's one of the best times of New York area. And I'm glad you are having a great time.
It is.
Well, that's good. Well, why don't we get started? As a start, would you please introduce yourself to our audience and to our listeners?
Sure. My name is Andrew Nunez. I have been in the software tech industry for over 30 years, and specifically in what's called the ERP adjacent and ERP reseller communities. So think of SAP, NetSuite, all of those folks, specifically though for the small to medium business market. So companies that are less than 50 million. Been doing that for 30 years. And I originally helped start a company based out of Houston, Texas, started their Northeastern offices. I'm from Texas, and had some friends who wanted to become resellers of a product called Solomon. And so back in the day, what you did was you signed up with that software publisher, and you went to selling it and then implementing it for your customers. And that was a great business that evolved for about 10 years. As I said, I helped them build their Northeast practices and introduce some new lines of products for them. Then left that partnership for a company called SWK here in the Northeast, which was at that time actually a step backwards. It was a small, $7 million reseller of Sage Maz 90, and had a really great run with that company. We built that up to about 60 million. We uplisted on the NASDAQ, so we were publicly traded. Had just a great team of people that we built there over the years. And when I decided to leave about 5 years ago, it was at 250 employees and just really a great organization. I got tapped on the shoulder to be the CEO of actually one of SWK's principal, what they call ISV partners. So in the ERP reselling world, you sell the ERP solutions, and when you get complex and you get bigger like SWK did, start getting customers and more than what the simple ERP can provide. So they start selling what's called ISVs, independent software vendors who are third parties that extend the ERP solutions in whatever vertical or operational requirement that the customer needs. One of our largest ISVs was a company called Scanco that does warehouse automation and manufacturing production floor automation. I knew them very well, obviously being one of our biggest partners. I was the CRO over at SWK. So I had a really great relationship with the owners, Sean and Tess, and they tapped me on the shoulder because they wanted to exit from the business, and they needed someone who understood their business and who could lead it. So in 2020, I then became the CEO for the specific purpose of exiting Sean and Tess to private equity or strategic buyer within 5 years. We did it in 3 years, which was great. And then the private equity team came in, and I stayed on for continuity of management, and most recently exited from that position earlier this year. Took a little time off after 25, 30 years. I thought it was time. I told my wife on vacation until really only lasted 6 weeks, and started thinking about what was next. And so now what I'm doing is taking all that knowledge that I've built over the last 30 years and my connections and partnerships, and I'm actually, a lot of companies reached out to me. There was a couple that wanted rescue CEO kind of stuff, and I didn't really want to do that. But some of the smaller players, some of the partners who I'd known for years and years, were looking for me to potentially do the same thing with them, with my first company and with Scanco. So I'm starting to engage them on that. In the meantime, also, I realized that it's not just about, taking a retainer, giving them advice and being a consultant and introducing them to the people that I know. It's actually about, investing in their company. I'm a builder, not a maintainer. So I really wanted to have an vested interest. So I've actually spooled up an investment arm of my business to invest in the companies, because, a lot of them need capital. There's a huge gap between what private equity and venture capital can do today for the small business owner, right? For the company that's less than $10 million. They don't understand the operational requirements. It's not like investing in a $50 or $100 million company where they have players who can help. These aren't platform businesses. These are people who are just looking to get, essentially seed or pre-seed and get to the next level. So I want to be a part of that and invest in that. And in the meantime, I'm also engaging with the private equity partners that I know, and setting up the potential buyers of these companies. So it's been I've only started doing this since September 1st, technically. So a fun ride thus far. I've already engaged and retained a couple of private equity and some of the partners, and we're building the platform now. One really exciting thing, and we'll talk about this as it relates to AI, is that the sourcing and diligence and the management of these companies can now all be done through an AI LLM. And so we've spooled up one of those as well. And we're really calling it a private equity management and sourcing engine. It's an ingestion engine as well, because not only does it do all the sourcing like you do in a data room, which is dead data, right? You take that information now, it's dynamic, you set a benchmark, but we're also using this as an ingestion engine. So we're connecting into those companies that we invest in, and we're actually going to use that information to monitor our benchmarks. What did we assume that we needed to do to get this? You could tap into so many different things now. I mean, their ERP system, their HR system, CRM system. You can tap into their general customer ecosystems. When you pull all that information in, your scorecard, you can make those minor adjustments, and you can make sure they don't go into the wrong app. And that makes your assistance of them and you're much more valuable. And I think it's going to actually allow private equity to not only source quickly and with much less cost, but also to much more efficiently exit their portfolio companies with a lot happier result. And that's really the end of the day, right? These are people who I know and trust and who trust me. And so I want to make sure that that result is a good one. Whether it's, hey, I just want to turn my $1 million company into a $5 million company and then leave it for 10 or 15. Or I want to turn my $5 million into a $50 million company and leave it for 150. Well, that's their choice too. But the fact is that a lot of that is after day. It's the private equity just assumes they can get it done. I'm trying to take all that. I want to deleverage that risk. I want to take it all out. So I think we could do that. It's kind of fun. Again, it's only been like a couple of weeks, but I'm excited for this.
Yes, absolutely. And as I mentioned in the beginning of the podcast, the size of the market, the enterprise, I might say business software market is actually huge. So it's going to be is expected to be $410 billion in terms of the software industry, everything together for US. That's huge. There was another research that I mentioned a couple of weeks ago about ERP industry. It was referring ERP industry to be $210 billion, just the ERP software alone globally. So these are really big numbers when we look at them, and also growing. There is no stagnation in the market in terms of numbers, need, and the size of the market as we look at the numbers alone. Speaking of that, you have decades of experience in the business software industry, ERPs, and other software systems. Based on your professional experience and your observation, how do you see the state of U.S. business software industry nowadays? What are the challenges in general that you see that business software companies, especially those that are making software for U.S. market, what type of challenges are you observing that they are having?
Well, I mean, Kevin, the reason why I got into this industry in the first place is because it does not stand still. It is not the kind of industry that is stagnant in any way. And anybody that tells you they've got a handle on it and understands it is lying to you, because it changes every 10 minutes. And if you think about the evolution of what we have from mainframes back in the 80s, which does predate me, I'm old, but to desktop solutions and servers, and I am that old. And then you have the common forms via the internet, and now you have the ability to code and to consolidate these software solutions seamlessly from the standpoint of data platforms. We're experiencing a watershed. We truly are. I think what has happened, and even using the term ERP, I believe is very dated. I think while ERPs are still obviously important, they are become less and less relevant to the businesses. The fact is that most ERPs started with the general ledger, and the general ledger hasn't changed anything. And then they grew out of necessity, started adding things like sales order and purchase order, and then they got closer and closer to the operational endpoints that actually matter in a company, right? It's not the back office. No offense to back office folks, but the fact is that the WMS and the MES solution, RP, all of that stuff, and I just threw a bunch of alphabet soup at you, but all of that stuff is what drives the business, right? And so the ERP did its best to provide that functionality, but it just simply can't. It becomes a big monolithic thing, and that's why you have ISV solutions. That's why you have people that are content experts that create software products that add on to these. Well, that's just a best of breed approach. It's the same kind of approach they had back in the 90s when you had a simple accounting system and then a CRM system separately, and then a warehouse system, and then a support system, and all of that, right, is all separate. Now, today, I think what's happening, and the key shift here, Kevin, is that companies are looking for those operational endpoint software first. Think about all the new products that have been put out. Workday, Odie, all of the different, solutions that are pointed. They're about not just a particular niche of software, but actually more horizontal operational requirements. And on the back end, what are they? They're agnostic to the ERP. They do not care. They just have a connector that taps into it. And what I think you're going to see is over workflows of various industries, like for instance, supply chain is a great example. You're going to start seeing end-to-end solutions, from the middle of the warehouse, from the production and procurement side of things, to the sales operations, to the end of mile in TMS and all of that kind of stuff will be one solution. Now, this SMB takes its cues from the tier one, and this is already happening at tier one. Look at COPA and a couple of other products that you can see that have made a really giant impact into the tier one, and those are the focus of what the tier one end users are using now. And I think what you're going to see again is that the ERPs become less and less relevant to the functionality requirements. They'll still be a critical part of the business, but I think you're going to see companies now really focusing on their horizontal requirements as it relates to the nature of their business. And that's a big challenge, Kevin. I think one of the things that is the hardest thing about our industry right now is that it's hard to buy in, at least in this segment of the industry. It's a high buy-in to get in, to be a reseller or an ERP or a publisher of these kinds of things. It's a very expensive proposition. And I think the tent has looked in other places, segments, right? They've looked in social media, other places where the entrepreneurial spirit can be much more relevant. So the new talent is most definitely not coming into certain segments of the technology space and the software space. And at the same time, you have this silver tsunami of all of these business owners who are looking to retire, right? There's this huge wave of people who are owning software companies at various levels who are past retirement age. They don't know how to exit. They really don't, because there's no one there that is imminently willing to buy their company. And they never really thought of it in those terms. Some of them are lifestylers. They just thought about just riding this to the sunset. But now that their kids are out of college and the boat's paid off, they're now thinking about, hey, maybe I can enjoy some of this effort that I've put into it. And frankly, it's there's no one that's waiting in the wings to take over. So that's going to be our biggest challenge, I think.
You mentioned about ISVs, some publishing companies. Well, let's talk about scaling up a business software company. What are the best practices to scale up a software company in the US market?
Well, the first and most important thing, build a strong recurring revenue model early. Thank you, NetSuite, for introducing SaaS subscription methodology. Thank you very much, because what that does is that creates this foundation of that you can build on as a company. And so having a really good recurring revenue model, what was Warren Buffett said? He said, you're a good investor when you make money in your sleep. That's what recurring revenue does, right? It's always making money for you. It's always there. It's that foundation. And if you're worrying about, landing the next project or the next big perpetual software license sale, which I know most everything is subscription these days. So it's not really, you got to realize too, that a lot of things that were never traditionally considered opportunities for subscription can be now. Services can be done on a subscription basis, all the things that we would have traditionally never thought of as something that you can you can create recurring revenue from, you certainly can. So number one is have a good model early and establish that with your customers. And you got to invest in product-led growth. You got to have a modern UI UX, right? But that's a relatively easy thing to do. And then, honestly, I tell people all the time, don't worry about trying to buy leads. Don't buy leads. No matter what form you're in. You can spend a lot of time on your website. You can spend a lot of time on your LinkedIn pages. You can spend a lot of time doing a lot of things that you to. Care about, if you really want to generate leads, prioritize your ecosystem partnerships. It is so much better to have a partner whose customers you can tap into versus trying to go and anonymously find those people. And when I say having those ecosystem partnerships, I don't just mean handshake partnerships or referral agreements. There has to be economic entanglement. When they sell their product, they have to be thinking about how it's just as important to sell yours and vice versa. And if you can do that, it's not just a warm lead, Kevin. It's a genuine potential customer. And frankly, if you can really figure that out, if you can really figure how you can add value to the sale of someone else's product with yours, well, that's the best marketing you could ever do. And so that's number three, but also very, very critical, especially in the ERP and ISV marketplaces. And then you got to develop, this is pretty standard stuff, but you got to have a disciplined financial and operational processes. You got to make sure that you're disciplined on the things that you're doing, stay in your lane, make sure that you're focused. It's a challenge. It's a challenge for a lot of companies. It's been a challenge for me in the past, frankly. And then number one, and this is also, you'll hear this from anybody who's giving you advice on business, but culture. Culture is critical. It eats strategy for breakfast. It really does. Culture is that important to your team. The right people, you can get past a lot of things that are wrong with your product and your go-to-market and your lead gen. You can get past a lot of things with the right people on your team.
I'd like to shift our conversation towards AI, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's a popular subject,
Please.
and our audience and our listeners and our subscribers, they are really interested in AI. And we learn and hear something new about AI pretty much on daily basis. So it's a really big deal. And it already started affecting our lives, businesses, and as for the small and mid-sized businesses, they keep learning on daily basis as well as to what is happening in the form of AI and how they can utilize it. Speaking of that, based on your background and your experience, how do you see the impact of AI on business and how businesses in different sizes should adopt AI into their business processes?
So I can't underscore enough much fundamentally artificial intelligence and the use of AI as a tool will fundamentally change just about everything we do. Example before that, in the 1920s, they introduced the tractor. The first year, the tractor could plow 15 acres, whereas a plowman and a horse could only do one a day. Within 2 years or 3 years, the tractors had become so much better that they could plow 50 acres only 1 acre a day. That fundamentally changed everything in agriculture, but not just agriculture, because not only did it unemploy the plowmen and the horses and the people that were making the plows, but it also made us way more efficient. It actually caused the Dust Bowl because we became so efficient that we overworked our fields, and then in the late 20s, you had this whole agricultural catastrophe that we didn't anticipate. It also sent millions of people to the unemployment lines and then sent them to the cities where were jobs in the factories and offices of the urban cities. So you had this huge shift from rural to urban as well, which changed our politics as well. I mean, think about what that one little piece of technology did to fundamentally change us. And it isn't anywhere near what AI is going to do for us. It already has impacted our business. Obviously, in the software business, the coders are turning into prompters, and what's happening is, whereas the plowman was an unskilled person who had to learn a skill in a factory, you actually have pretty educated people that are being put out of jobs because of AI now, right? People who are in all the low-level guild operations. So the guild businesses are things like accountants, lawyers, doctors, all of those people that have these qualifying criteria to become a doctor or a lawyer or an accountant, right? You have to be an associate first. And those are the people that do the grunt work. Well, that grunt work can be done by AI now. So that whole channel, that whole progression is going to be disrupted. And what's going to happen in the short term is the people who are the most senior people are going to learn how to prompt AI. And when they learn how to prompt AI, it'll be the same kind of prompt that they do when they prompted the associate to do the work. Except the AI will be much more efficient, get it done in 2 minutes, where the associate might take 2 weeks. And so we're going to see a huge productivity increase. But at the same time, we're going to see a lot of people become unemployed. I want to get the fact is that when we can introduce the physical nature of it, robotics, and that is around the corner. It is absolutely around the corner. You're going to see, you're going to see the ability of people that are doing manual labor, simple manual tasks, gardening, repair work, some light construction. Construction is a challenge for anything, but the simple construction stuff, painting, things like that. Those things are going to go away. And I'm telling you right now, 5 years. It's a 5-year event horizon. Healthcare professionals that come in and help the elderly, do menial tasks or just simply take their blood pressure on an on-site. The things that we can't hire people for these days. We can't find enough nurses. All of that stuff is going to soon be replaced. And I mean, it might sound sci-fi to you today, but so did the fact that we could have cars drive us from one place to another without touching the steering wheel. And I own a Tesla. I bought one in 2019. Politics aside, I bought one in 2019, and I love the car for the way it drives. But I bought full self-driving, and I was terrified to use full self-driving up until about 6 months ago when they started doing the robo-taxis. Because remember, the Tesla full self-driving is an AI. It's a collective. So once they started putting these things on the streets in San Francisco and Austin, it got way smarter, really quick. And I kid you not, we drove to my mother-in-law's house. We were in upstate New York, and we drove to Toronto. I did not touch the steering wheel from my driveway to her driveway. I didn't touch the steering wheel. Even in charging stations, it pulled into the charging station that was open. It was crazy, Kevin. And that kind of technology is the kind of technology we're going to see across the board. And so, frankly, yeah, it's big in our industry. We'll always be leaders in this because we're technology. So AI it couples really well. It'll also add functionality that had never been considered, right? Things that people are doing to do analysis on top of our computer systems. Because remember, ERP is just the collection of data, right? It never has really returned the promise that it brings on the analysis of data, right? ERP has always been supposed to help us manage by exception, not by the rules. And AI is going to allow us to do that. It's going to take all that fire hydrant of data that we get from ERP, and it'll allow us to parse it out and use it more effectively and then act on it. So that's a pretty critical change.
How about regulating AI? How to regulate? First of all, should we regulate AI? And how should we do it? Any thoughts?
Yeah, I think I mean, look, when you have the founder of OpenAI coming out and saying we should regulate this business, well, then maybe you should listen to the guy. But so I think there does have to be some regulation. I'm not sure how you do it because it is such a new space. I do think of it as a tool. It's not sacient. It's not something that is, going to live on its own. Um, However, there's going to be bad actors that use it and use it in a bad way. I mean, we're already seeing that cybersecurity has evolved past fighting AI. It's now AI fighting AI. So the good AI fights the bad AI, and there has to be some sort of regulation there because we're not fast enough to monitor it. And that's the problem. And it, again, goes back to the car thing. What I didn't like about the full self-driving of my Tesla at first is that it reacted faster than the human. So it terrified me. It would actually be much more safe because it would stop faster. It would anticipate when someone came into the lane, it would jerk over, and that scared the heck out of me until they smoothed that out to my human sensitivities. It was me. And so I think we need to consider that, right? That the human entity has to catch up to our technology. And to do that, you have to regulate it. You have to temper it. There's no rush here, right? There is absolutely no rush here. We already bulldogged our way into the next iteration. It's okay for us to meter it a little bit, right? And to be pleased and thoughtful about how we go about taking the next step. Do we have that discipline? No, but we probably should.
Well, I like to turn our conversation towards role models and mentors. Have you had any role models, any mentors who help shape your career journey?
Yeah, I do. I've had a lot of role models, and mentors, and that's part of why um, you do what you do. People like this, and so I've been lucky to who have been great role models and mentors to me. Going back to my early days working with a not-for-profit, even before coming into this industry. The executive director was a surrogate father to me, and just a great man, and really showed me how to interact with people appropriately. He was always the kind of person who never missed a step in engaging someone the right way. And certainly Mark Meller, the current CEO and my former boss at SWK, just a great man and just a genuinely good person. So, he taught me a lot of things about, not only about business. Geez, we did 17 acquisitions together and, uplisted on NASDAQ. So he taught me all that stuff. But really what he taught me was, how to get out of the way. He was a super smart guy and still is and still runs the business. And he was always there when the decision needed to be made, but he always knew when the decision didn't need to come from him. Even if it was the decision he knew he wanted or didn't want, he was very smart. Grow by going out and not necessarily letting them make mistakes. People stay, let them make some mistakes. It's not necessary. But he certainly was the kind of guy who was willing to take chances on. And that's something you learn. It's hard to do when you're in that seat, that's something that I had to deploy when I became a CEO a little later on in my career. You got to allow people to their job. And it's hard because you really want to do it for them, not because you think you're better than they are, but because you want to make sure that it's easier for them. And sometimes the easier road is not that. So that was something I learned from Mark. And then the owners of my past business, Sean and Tess Burrows, they just had such fun doing what they did. And frankly, I don't know that they, they kind of inherited this business. They were concert promoters before they joined, before they started in the WMS software. And, I think it's so fantastic how they just totally embraced, totally loved it. and became passionate about it. And, about a 180, right? Um, and they just had so much fun, and so that's another thing. It's hard to learn because you get mired in the mud. You get your face on the day to day, and having a laugh. Every interaction is critical. Jokes and humor in this thing is absolutely critical, and it's critical in your life. And people who aren't funny, I can't deal with. So I love people who are willing to joke and have a laugh, because that's what it's about being passionate, right? There you go, Kevin. That's it. Show me that laugh.
Yep, yep, you got it. Well, if there is one key career lesson that you learned the hard way that you can share with us here today, what would it be?
Yeah. Well, I would say work at your partnerships. You know, I had someone who had a very successful and continues to have a very successful marriage. And my wife and I asked them at one point, what's the key? And they said, don't take anything for granted. Wake up every day working at your marriage. The same thing worked. It's the same thing with your career. My one regret is that there's so many people that I connected with and made significant connections with, and worked with day to day. I mean, spent more time than my family in my career that, frankly, I've lost touch with. So, it's almost, you have to almost practice it, and keep a list of people you want to make sure that just check in with, because that not only keeps you sane and they call you out on your BS, but it reminds you of where you are and how far you've come, and where you've been. And so I would say that's definitely something that you have to challenge yourself to do it, because again, you always are looking forward and rarely looking back. So that's definitely something that I would recommend for anyone, not to the people and that you've made good with, and just make sure you check in with them every once in a while.
Is there a is there any book, any show, any movie that help you shape your perspective in your career journey?
Um, Not anything in the past that I can remember, but I got to tell you, I watched the Bear. I don't know if you've ever watched that. It was on FX, I believe, and it's a show about a genius cook who comes back and takes over the family restaurant and turns it into a Michelin star restaurant. And how he's obsessed with doing this so precisely, and his interactions with his team, and how he fails people, and how he lets them succeed. And I got to tell you, it's like business. It's the stripped down version of business, and it's intense. By the way, it's all adrenaline. It's all about the back office kitchen stuff. It's 30-minute episodes, but you're shaking at the end of each episode because it's so intense. But it really brings home the relationships and what it is to build a business. It just strips out all the BS, and so I love that. And I think that's as a show, really is worthwhile for anybody who has a business or starting a business. It's definitely, at least the first couple of seasons, definitely worth watching for sure.
Well, if you had a chance to go back in time, to what time period would you go back and why?
I didn't look at many of the questions you sent me, but that one actually stuck out. That's a great question, Kevin. And I thought about it. I actually spent some time about that, and I realized I don't know that I'd want to go any farther back than my own lifetime, because think about how great the last 30 years have been. Think about all the things that have changed, all the things that we've seen. How, I mean, again, I'm a technologist, so that's my bias, but technology, good Lord. So I'd almost want to do it again, and go buy Bitcoin for like 30 cents. Yeah, sure, I'd want to do that, but 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 like just seeing it all happen and knowing what the end game is going to be would be so interesting, right? I mean, yeah, you could go back to like the 19th century and all that stuff, but they had things like you know famines and gout and stupid wars and stuff like that. The last 30 years have been great, and we've been lucky to live through it. So yeah, it was that question threw me for a loop, and I guess my answer would be I'd want to go back 30 years, not my entire life, but maybe back to when I was in my 20s. First starting out in my career. I probably wouldn't do many things differently, again, other than buy Bitcoin at 30 cents. But I would absolutely um, want to see how it plays out again. Just watch it again from a different lens. It'd be super interesting.
What are your passions and interests outside of work?
Well, as I said earlier, I play a lot of tennis. I also I like things that begin and end, right? So I do a lot of gardening, and the reason why I picked up and do that is because again, in our industry, when you implement an ERP system or you implement a software system, it evolves, right? Those customer relationships should last you a lifetime, right? And they never finish implementing. That's the misnomer. You never finish implementing. As soon as you finish, they acquire a new company or they change their rules or they get so efficient they want to do more stuff, right? And if you do it right, your relationship and your project with them should be ongoing. So when I get the chance to do something that has a beginning and an end, I seize on it. And so the great thing about gardening, and we have a pretty decent sized property. So the great thing about that is that there is a season, right? There's a beginning and an end, especially in the Northeast. However, every year you get a new chance to do the same thing over again, and it's slightly different. The light might have changed. The plants are a little older or whatever. And so I do love that, knowing that come November I'm done, right? And then I enjoy playing tennis, and actually most importantly, and I've rediscovered this in my time off, I truly enjoy traveling with my wife. We just we like exploring and doing things, and it's not going and seeing exotic places all the time. Sometimes it's just finding a place that we can pretend to be locals for a while, and so I love that. I love doing that.
Yeah, that's exciting. Well, uh, in professional career, there are sometimes difficult times. There are sometimes challenging times. Not everything is easy all the time. When this is the case, how do you stay motivated and inspired in the times of challenge and difficulty?
It's a great question. I'm not sure I have one answer, but I would say that it's funny in my offices. I'll always put up whatever awards or something like that. You get your trophy wall, but then I also make sure that I put up the things that remind me of the failures, because I have lots of stupid stuff that I have in my offices that remind me. I'm like, oh yeah, that was a bad day for Andy, right? And in some ways, those things remind you that you maybe have been lower, or that you could be low again, and that when it's tough and challenging, that there's always upside. I'm a firm believer in the rubber band effect. When you pull something back, it snaps back, and it's just about it really is, Kevin. It's just about minimizing the lows and maximizing the highs. No one else on this planet has any life that is trouble free, right? And there's lots of people outside of our country that have much worse lives and much more challenging roads to happiness. And so, when you put that in perspective, looking at that stupid little thing that I put in my corner that reminds me of a bad day, it puts everything in perspective. And so, yeah, that's probably my little mnemonic device for figuring out, the bad days and the hard days. There are other things that get me happy and get me back to the right frame of mind, but those actually change as you get older. Sometimes it's ice cream, that was in my 20s. And, now it's going out and playing a good game of tennis or something like that, or going out in the garden. Those are things that make me right. And so you got to have those, but I think you also have to have the things that remind you of the things that weren't so good, and the times that weren't so good, that potentially you're in a better place now.
For our listeners and also viewers, what would be your career advice, especially for the next generation?
Yeah, I would say, trying to be Nostradamus and figure out what the best path is a great challenge today. What I would say is that, definitely don't rush into anything in particular. Make sure that you test and taste everything that you might want to do. And don't think that you don't have to do that. Don't think that you can't just start a job, and make sure that it's, a temporary one, right? In our generation, Kevin, we all thought about, we're going to create a job, we're going to be here for 30 years, and then we'll retire with a nice nest egg. That doesn't exist anymore, right? And if it ever did, frankly. And now I think there's a generation just preceding this generation that was, I'm going to jump as fast as I can. I'm going to go and do this. I'm going to test it. If I don't like it, I'm moving on. And I think that was because the market itself was so good for the job seeker. I feel like the market isn't going to be as good for those educated people, for all the reasons we just talked about, right? And so you're going to have to be careful there. But I still think it's important that people, test out the waters of what you want to do. The last thing you want to do is get into a career that you feel you have to do because you just got good at it. Being good at a career doesn't mean you love it. And it doesn't mean you should be in that career, right? There's a lot of things that you and I and everybody else can be good at. There are very few things, frankly, that we know we can't be good at. I will never be a professional sports athlete. Okay, I can deal with that. But there's a lot of other things that I could do, and I could do well. But would it be my passion? Would I love it? Would I wake up every day and say, I enjoy doing this? And not everybody figures that out. In fact, I think most people don't early on in their careers. So, a lot of times you get locked in, and then all of a sudden you make a little bit of money, right? And all of a sudden people are saying, hey, you're good at this. Well, it doesn't mean you love it. I was very lucky that I got into a career that allowed me to interface with a lot of different companies and have pretty much a new adventure every day. And that was something I know I wanted, right? But I didn't actually realize that I was more of a builder, not a maintainer, until 15 years ago. And that's because I got so fixated on the constant need to build onto something that really just needed to be maintained. And I lost sight. And then I realized, wow, this is not what I enjoy. And even though this is a great company and it has a long way to go potentially, it's not me that's going to do it, right? And so, knowing your lane there is super important. And the only way you can figure out what that lane is by going outside of it occasionally, right? Especially in the beginning. So test those waters, go do things and try things that you maybe don't think you're good at, or you maybe don't think you might enjoy, and just see why and what if you don't enjoy them. You don't have to start your career officially in your 20s. You just don't. It's a good time for you to go and mess things up. And there's lots of people who made billions of dollars starting their careers in their 30s and 40s and 50s. So don't think you have to do that day one.
Well, for those who like to be in touch with you and continue this conversation, perhaps what is the best way to be in touch with you?
You can just go ping me via email. It's anunez@bombillcapitalpartners.com. That's ANUNEZ at Bombill, BALMBILLE, Capital Partners, CAPITAL PARTNERS.com. I probably need to shorten that URL. But capitalpartners.com, and you can always ping Kevin. He knows how to get me 24/7.
Well, before we end our interview in the American Business Podcast, do you have any final notes you like to share with the audience?
No, I would just like to thank you, and also, you and I have been friends for quite some time here now, and I really enjoy that you just started this podcast, and it's been so successful. I mean, you have over 100,000 subscribers. It's fantastic. And when you and I were sitting at lunch the other day, and you mentioned this, I had no idea. And so I've been watching all the podcasts now. Back to you got 70 episodes, for God's sakes. It's like I'm binging your podcast. And it's been great. The people you have on is fantastic. So I just want to thank you. This has been a lot of fun, and I really enjoy the content you're putting out. So thanks again, Kevin.
Pleasure is all mine, and thank you so much for being with us today in your busy schedule. It's always a pleasure. Thank you, and I wish you a great weekend.
Have a good one. Take care.
Thank you very much. Well, to our audience and to our listeners, thank you very much for listening and watching with another great episode with Andrew Nunes. As I always promise, you always learn something new in the American Business Podcast. At least one thing you'll definitely learn. But in this episode, I'm sure you'll learn many different things. Andy is very generous to share his professional wisdom and his insights. In that sense, it was very educational for all of us. And especially building your career and what type of steps that you should be taking when you're building your career was very educational. Also, he shared insights about how companies, especially business software companies, can scale up, and those insights are also very important. Especially in the case of technology and AI, things are changing pretty much on daily basis, and in this evolution, it's important to be on top of the change and adapt to it. In that sense, it was a great episode. I also enjoyed it myself. I hope you like it too, and you found it to be informative and educational as always. Would you like to be a guest in the American Business Podcast? You can send us an email, americanbusinesspodcast@gmail.com. We also welcome sponsors and advertisers, companies, organizations, institutions who like to promote their products and services. We love to partner with you. You can also send us an email, americanbusinesspodcast@gmail.com. We love to hear from you. What do you think about the podcast? Any thoughts, any ideas? Please send us your feedback, americanbusinesspodcast@gmail.com. It's important that we hear from you. Your feedback, very important for us. And we are also learning from you and shaping the American Business Podcast. In that sense, we truly appreciate your emails, your reach outs. And if you have any questions, you can also send us an email too. We are very responsive for those who reach out to us. I'm sure as soon as you send us an email, we reply ASAP within 24 hours, and we keep the conversation going. That's very important. If you'd like to learn more about the American Business Podcast, you can visit our website, americanpodcast.tv. You can learn more about our team, the American Business Podcast. Also, we publish our coming schedule, our coming guests, as well as subjects that we are planning to cover in the American Business Podcast. Feel free to visit americanpodcast.tv. As you know, the American Business Podcast is an award-winning business podcast. We got the YouTube Silver Award. It's because we have more than 100,000 YouTube subscribers. Thank you very much for your support. We truly appreciate it. If you haven't done so, please subscribe our YouTube channel. I have the QR code right here. You can scan this. It'll take you to our YouTube channel. Please subscribe, share, and if you are feeling more generous, please share your thoughts, your comments in the chat box. We have many popular subjects that we are talking about: AI, career development, as well as key career lessons. What do you think about AI? How is it affecting your business? Share your thoughts in the chat box. Really appreciate it. Well, what else is happening? Let's talk about our sponsors. Ms. Excel. If you like to learn Excel in a fun and enjoyable, engaging way, consider Ms. Excel. I have the QR code on the screen. You can scan the QR code. It'll take you to their website. You can see their course catalog. And before you check out, make sure to use discount code coming from the American Business Podcast, ABP 2025. That's your discount code. And you can enjoy the benefits of the Ms. Excel courses and also the discount coming from the American Business Podcast partnership. If you are in the market for SAP ERP system, accounting software system, as well as the implementation of Oracle, NetSuite, and Microsoft Business Central accounting and ERP software systems, consider iTech Consulting. They are specialized in SAP, Oracle, NetSuite, and Microsoft Business Central software systems. And they have their in-house teams. I have the QR code on the screen. If you scan the QR code, it'll take you to their website. You can learn more about their services. And if you get in touch with them, make sure you hear about iTech from the American Business Podcast. Connectional America Business Alliance, our online exclusive networking event, is coming up. This month, it is scheduled for September 19 at 10 a.m. Eastern Time Zone. Join us. We're going to have only 7 attendees, and you'll be in front of the American Business Podcast, thousands of subscribers, followers, and supporters. That is what makes it unique. Not only you will be engaging and networking with other business professionals, you will be also in front of the American Business Podcast audience. That's a unique business networking opportunity. And if you like to join us, please scan this QR code. It'll take you to our registration page. You can register and join us. That is for September 19 at 10 a.m. Eastern Time Zone. It is a great opportunity to introduce your company, your products, your services, and your offering. I hope you can join us. A couple of weeks ago, we started our membership program, ABP membership program. We have different membership programs, different types. When you scan this QR code, it'll take you to our membership page, and you can pick the one that actually resonates to you. We need your support, and we like to create and grow this business community. In that sense, American Business Podcast, ABP membership program is a great opportunity for all of us, and we'll truly appreciate your support. As a thank you to your support, we also have benefits for each membership. You can be a supporter, you can be a business professional member, and whichever you prefer. Each membership comes with benefits. And when you scan the QR code, you can also see the details on the website that we put together for membership information and registration. I hope you join us and you become the American Business Podcast ABP member. I'd like to thank you for your time and thank you for your interest. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the coming The American Business Podcast episodes. The American Business Podcast is the voice of American business. Thank you very much and have a great weekend.